people get triggered and they get negative a lot of times, it's because it's a mirror to them that they are not where they're supposed to be. Because if you were in your lane fully, you wouldn't care what was going on, whether you use AI or not, because you're in your lane doing it the way God is directing you to do that. And so when you're speaking also negatively, it's ignorance, because I'm like, okay, you don't have all the facts, you don't know everything, you don't know how they're using it, you don't know what God is calling them. Now you're presuming that you can speak into somebody else's life and purpose and be God. And we're supposed to be edifying each other. The world will know who we are as Christians when we love one another and when we are tearing people down because they're doing things differently. It always happens in the arts. So you have the big renaissance and now they're painting differently. There's going to be an issue.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome once again to the Audacious Faith Podcast, where we believe that God wants to put in us the audacity to know in our hearts that He put us on this earth to do more than just to exist, but to make a huge difference in the world around us. I want to tell you that today, my guest is literally going to blow your mind. And I know that because she basically did that with me. And I tell you, I've had a lot of interviews already where I've interviewed people on the podcast. So many great people, seeing how God works in amazing ways. My guest today, though, is very unique. I mean, honestly, I found the gifts that she has and everything when we had a little pre-talk, and I've already looked into some of the things that she does to be quite brilliant in her own way. And so you're going to really catch some things today, I think, that are going to stretch your mind, going to open you up to the possibilities of what audacious faith really is, and because it's in action. I mean, I was so impressed, quite honestly, that I actually became part of her program, and that's, I think, the first time I've done that with any of the guests that I've had. So I'm excited. Raquel Soto, so good to have you with us today. Let me tell you a little bit about Raquel. I like her statement here. She says, I break people's limitations so their work outlives them. That right there is huge. That's right after my heartbeat. That's exactly what I want to do, and I know so many other people do. She's doing coaching and she's doing music. She's started a radio thing. I mean, AI, neuroscience, scripture combined, making the worlds collide in a good way. I mean, it's just amazing. So Raquel, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for that lovely introduction. I'm like, wow, he makes me sound amazing and fabulous.
Well, I think
appreciate the introduction.
I think God has made you that way, so that's awesome. Tell us a little bit about Raquel. All right. I mean, people that maybe are seeing you for the first time and they're thinking, who is this person? You know, how did you kind of get here? A little brief thing of your story. You're a person of faith as well. So how did that come to be, and why is that important to you also?
Oh, such good questions. I'll try to keep it succinct, but the way I started on this path was I tried to take my own life 4 different times. And
Mm,
on the fourth attempt, because I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed all the time, I just really asked God. I was crying out. He supernaturally stopped me again.
mm,
And the question then was, why? Why do I think this is a good idea? I need you to show me what is really happening in my body and my heart and my mind, because I know I love you and my kids and my family, but I just really felt like that the best for everybody was for me to end it.
mm.
And so then he took me on a path of light reading, neuroscience, epigenetics, quantum physics,
Yeah.
and yeah, all the light stuff. And then I started to
Sure.
really recognize how everything's tied together, and how all these things were already in the Bible, and how the sciences are just really explaining the mechanisms that he already put into place. And so I started to use that on myself, and I saw how rapidly my inner world was changing when I started to understand really what was going on. And that's what he tells us, right? That wisdom is the principal thing, but in all our getting, get understanding. And so as I was getting understanding, then I was using it on myself, and then people were noticing the change, and I started to just do some like coaching when I was working in corporate. And then he called me out of that. It was like in 2019, I was in prayer and meditation, and he was just like, oh, yeah, I want you to leave in 90 days. I want you, like, your 4th of July is your 4th of July. Like, I want
Mm,
you independent from here. And I was like, well, you've got male Jesus because I mean, and he's corrected me. He's like, yeah, you're romanticizing the story. But we do that, right? When we're getting paid well, we get accolades and things are in that space where people praise you. People
Mm,
don't see the back end. In the back end, people didn't know I tried to take my life. I had lost a lot of my hair because of the stress.
mm,
I had activated because of the stress, not because of weight or eating, but it was actually the stress that caused the activation of type 2 diabetes.
mm.
So it was like all these things behind the scenes, but
Yeah,
people who are like us, who are high achievers, everybody comes to us, we're the strong ones, they don't check up on us because we don't want to give somebody our burden. And because we don't, then, we're actually in disobedience because we're supposed to be sharing our burdens with those who are with us, right? We're supposed to be living life together. And I
right.
wasn't really doing that and trusting other people to do that because when I started to share the story, people were like, what do you mean? And then they felt guilty. As sometimes people have like survivor's guilt, you know,
Sure.
you, they were feeling guilty for not noticing that I was in so much pain during that time. And so, seeing that and having to reconcile with that too. And then, they had the night, and I was like, okay, what we'll do is then, I was like, well, I need this amount of money just to make sure that I'm not hearing you correctly.
Yeah.
Some people was like, God said, hold my beer. People were like, what? I was like,
Mm,
yeah. So the first 6 weeks, I was already doing like some side coaching, and that was like still, bringing in what it was bringing in. But the last 6 weeks, it was like flooded. I had tens of thousands of dollars. And then
mm,
at the end of that, I was like, God said, bet. Okay, we had a deal. Are you going to quit or not? And then I was like, well, you did what you said you were going to do. I guess I'm going to have to leave this job that I found to be very cushy because it was
mhm.
paying me, again, right? Paying me well, raises, bonuses. My teams then never got laid off when everybody else got laid off.
Yeah.
And so then at the end of that, I was still, I gave my notice, but because I worked internationally, I had my hands on a lot of cookie jars. It took like I gave him 2 months notice, and then they hired me to be a contractor. And in October, he was just like, I told you I don't want to work. You work for me now. And I was
Yeah.
like, oh, so I had to cut them loose. And then he's been like restoring things. So I thought, sometimes when God tells us things, there's these deep desires in our hearts that sometimes we don't bring to him. We
Sure.
don't even are consciously aware of it really or even talk about it. But what he was actually restoring during that time, I thought it was like entrepreneurship. Let me go and help, Christian entrepreneurs and spiritual people. And back then he had me what I call covert operations. It was like Esther. So you didn't know who I was. I was a Christian until I had to be revealed to you. But a lot of the work was going after the one, right? The Father loves to go after the one who's lost. And most of
Sure.
my work was that was finding the one that was lost and bringing them back to the principles of Christ and bringing them back home.
Hmm.
And so I was doing that for a long period of time. And in that process, I was just like learning, doing things, just kind of following his lead until last year. And then last year, everything switched. He's like, okay, there was a few things I did. He's like, burn it down. Like, what do you mean? We just built this up. And he's like, nope, burn it down. We're doing something new. And these are things that I'm not saying God would do it to you, but we have to live this life of like, well, if I'm a kingdom ambassador, if I'm working for you, we're doing this together, we're co-creating, everything is hands up. And it's like, this is what I think you want me to do. I really love it, but I have to be willing to put it down if it's no longer the season for that thing, because even good things can be detrimental, right? It's
Sure.
like the good can become bad because we're out of season and we don't want to release it. Now it's become a God to us because that's what's sustaining us. That's what's resourcing us. That's what's giving us money. That's where we're getting like all the good, ego boosts.
Yeah.
Like, lay it down. We're going to do something new. And I was like, all right. So, I did. And last year was just a year of first where somebody approached me and said, do you want to have I think you'd be great on TV. I was like, and she
Yeah.
was like, yeah, I'm starting a network. And I, think about it. And we had a few conversations. And she's like, it's new to me. And then she's like, well, I'll learn together. And it was just like, just say yes. And I was
Hmm.
just like, okay. But because I said yes to that, then I had an idea came like, wouldn't it be fun? Like, God could get me to do anything if it sounds like fun. It's like, wouldn't it be fun to do a theme song for your TV show? I'm like, oh, that does sound like fun. And I did it. I really enjoyed the way it came out. It matched the vibe of the show. And then it's like, wouldn't it be fun to do it for people? Just gift them with it.
Hmm.
Let's see who wants to play in the sandbox. So then I offered it, and then I was able to see the pattern of what the songs would do, but
Yeah,
I miscalculated the time collapse. It was happening instantaneously. And so I did a few songs, and like the first one I did was called Comeback Queen, and it was for an
mhm,
offer, and she was giving it to women, and she said this publicly, so I'm not speaking out of turn,
sure.
that she was giving it to women finding themselves in sudden divorce in their 40s, 50s, and 60s.
Hmm.
And as she's having conversations with them, she's sending them the song and they're getting emotionally healed because it's really her words and her vibe and her mission
Sure.
to see these women come back to wholeness after being devastated, being delivered to them. And so it's like, oh, it's happening faster than I thought. Like I knew it was going to happen. I just thought people had to really get into it for maybe, months or weeks. But it
Right.
was literally like Amos 9:13 happening. Like the seed and the harvest was like happening at the same time, you know?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so then that opened up. I was able to be an MC on a yacht last year. I've never done that before. I was in 5 different books last year that I either co-authored or authored myself. And then, yeah, so that was like the TV show led to the music, led to the MCing, led to the publishing. And then this year, God's like, oh, and now for your bingo card. I was like, what are we doing this year? He didn't tell me for a little bit. And then when I wasn't feeling well, he's like, yeah, radio station. And this is what we're going to do. And I wasn't feeling well. Usually I fuss with him at first because it's like when
Uh-huh.
God gives you a big project, you're like, who, me, God? You start going to Gideon. You're like, I'm going to act like my cousin Gideon. I'm the least. Are you sure? Or usually it's like, don't you have any more kids, Jesus?
Exactly, huh?
But once I started actually building it out, I'm having so much fun. And now I see the ecosystem, how
Hmm.
like that's really the hub of the ecosystem of everything that he's been having me build the last couple of years as I've been shifting things, um, according to his leading.
So that is amazing. So here's what I hear from the very beginning. You're talking about here you had people in your life, you had people in your life that you were responsible for, that you cared about and everything, and yet you were just dying in the inside. And literally trying to, you said 4 times to
Hmm.
take your life, and God stopped you until you're finally thinking, I can't be that incompetent of doing this. That's what I'm getting from you, right? So obviously he was keeping you alive for something. And I love what you touched on too, that here you were a very high achiever, and a lot of people had no clue. I mean, just no clue that you're going through. I'm thinking how many people are out there right now, possibly even listening to this, and they have no clue, others have no clue that they're hurting. They're struggling like that.
It's
And
it's very common because when I
yeah.
start talking about it, usually I get like, "Oh, me too," you know.
Mhm.
And I'm like, "You need to check in on your strong ones because people don't, and that's why nobody checked up on me. It's because I was carrying other people's burdens. I was always there for them, and it wasn't like they weren't there for me, but they didn't recognize it because I was a good pretender. I did
Right.
not want them to know that I was hurting because I didn't want them to hurt too. And so people like us, we need to be mindful of like, yeah, we're supposed to share each other's burdens here.
So in that case, I want to touch on what you just said, because you didn't want them to hurt also. So you still had, when people think of those who are suicidal and they're struggling, they'll say that they're just so absorbed in their own thing that they don't really think about anything else. But in your case, that was not the case. You were so concerned about others hurting also that you basically didn't, you were there for everybody else and you didn't want anyone to know because you figured that it would just devastate them and they couldn't handle it. Is that what it was?
Yeah. And after I started telling the story, I was right. Because people were devastated and
Yeah.
they were devastated because they didn't recognize it. They were devastated because they didn't get the opportunity to share in that. And then they're like, well, I don't even know what I would have done, to
Mhm.
help you
Did you
during that.
find that there were people that really would want it to help you then?
Oops. Yes. Yeah. I have my children. I mean, they were too young at the time, but my sister, she's my best friend. My parents, we're very close. So um, I have a very unusual relationship with my sister. We're best friends. We're
Okay,
like
that's
super,
great. That's
super
great.
close, and a lot of people don't have that either.
Right.
And I remember speaking to her about it, and now she like purposely checks up on me she'll like say a sentence, "Are you really okay?" And she's now listening closer to like the syntax and the frequency and and what's going on in my voice. So yeah, there were and there are people in my life,
Hmm.
thankfully. And I've also learned to ask for help. I've also learned to be more vulnerable. I mean, I have to take responsibility too, is that I don't necessarily expect it from people
Sure.
because that's unfair and it's not really their place, that's God's place. But I
Right.
also know that He works in and through people. So most of the time it's me and God. And other times, he'll have humans and the conversations would just organically open up where I can share something with somebody.
So, despite the fact that you said there were people that did care about you in your life or that you were involved in your life, you said early on as well that you convinced yourself that others would be better off if you weren't around anymore. So, it wasn't
Mhm.
that you didn't care about them. In some ways, were you deceiving your own self in the sense where you thought it would actually be better for them if you weren't there?
Yeah, that was the whole deception. I mean, that's the only power the enemy has
Hmm.
is the power of deception. And all he has to do is have the seed, and then what does our brain do, right? If we're receiving a thought, this is why God tells us to capture every thought and make it obedient to Christ, right?
Right.
And then Philippians, we see like, okay, what's the marker? The marker is the first thing is it true? Well,
Mm.
most thoughts are not even going to pass the first thing. Is it
Right.
lovely? It goes to the other things, think about these things, things that are true and lovely and a good report. Well, most things don't even pass the first check off. Is
Yeah,
it true? And so it sounded like truth, and that's the deception. Is
sure.
that when we are not in the word, when we are not in his presence, when we are not really getting our identity from him and him alone, there
Hmm.
has to be a plumb line. Then it's very easy for us to be deceived. I mean, we're all deceived about something, and God reveals it as we're maturing, and He's sending us signals when it's time for us to be free from that deception. But I had allowed the things that people have said to me, the experiences that I had to be God in my life in some ways. That
Yeah.
I believed the experiences more than I believed what He said. And because I believed my experiences more than what He was saying, that then became my internal narrative. And so the enemy doesn't have to be attacking you all the time. He just has to, provide some experiences that you end up participating in, or things happening, or things that you're witnessing all the time, and allowing that belief system to be nurtured. And then it does the rest. It's not like he's got like 10 billion demons and we're all being attacked all the time.
Right.
It's unnecessary. We have TV, we have our we have our peers, we have our
Whole
family members, we
system.
have our friends gaslighting us, like
Yeah. The
doesn't
whole
really have to
system's
do a
been
lot.
set up. That's so very true. So how do you let me ask you this question. So for the person out there, I mean, we obviously God has made us with emotions. And so to be void of emotions and to not handle them correctly is a mistake. But at the same time, emotions can defy truth, as you were saying right here. So, how blending that neuroscience knowledge and the biblical knowledge of truth, how does a person allow themselves to still feel the emotions that God has created in us, but at the same time not be um, taken away from truth because they're just following emotions?
It's really understanding how we're beautifully and wonderfully made.
Mhm.
Our feelings. So there's people switch them. So there's feelings and emotions. And feeling is like that undercurrent, you know, the sense. That's feelings. Emotions are those things that like pop up and down, right? Like you're driving and you're, whatever, driving, you're singing worship or whatever, having a good time. Somebody cuts you off and you're like, hey, you're like, oh, wait. And your emotion goes up and it goes down, right? It's like a roller coaster. So that's the difference. And so your thoughts are actually what activate the emotions. And the emotions is what either activates an action or non-action. You still have a choice there.
Sure.
So when we understand that that's how we're made, this is why God says capture the thought. Because if you catch it at the seed, if you catch it in the beginning, you can capture it and make it obedient to Christ before it has a chance to activate your emotion, because the emotions he gave you as fuel to act, or not act.
Hmm.
But it can get hijacked because your brain is your medicine man or your drug dealer. And so if you're in a high emotional state, now your brain is releasing all these chemicals. It goes to your prefrontal cortex, right? That drops your IQ 15 points. And an IQ doesn't mean smart, it just means the speed of which you're processing data. And so the higher the IQ, the faster you're processing data. That's all it means. So that's all it is. But so even if you're like, well, I'm dumb as I'm dumb as a stump, or I'm a genius, still you're in a diminished capacity now for thinking, and thinking is our gift. And so understanding, okay, when you have your emotions, it's only because of the thoughts that you're having.
Mm.
So if you're having negative emotions about yourself, if you're having imposter syndrome, if you're having a negative internal dialogue, it's only because, all those things are activating you feeling less than, having less self-worth, not having that self-love that God has put in you. That's all it is. So has anything gone wrong? No, there's nothing wrong with you. We think something's wrong with us, but our brain and our body and our feelings and our emotions, they are working exactly the way God designed us, which is why when we understand that, like, oh, that's why he said to capture every thought and make it obedient to Christ. Because when we don't, it'll start to seed in things that in us and have us do belief systems about ourselves that are not true. It is not the truth that sets us free. It is knowing it. It is knowing it in the intimate sense that sets us free. And that's why I love the interplay of how he was showing me, of like, this is why I said, and this is neuroscience saying, and this is the mechanism.
Hmm. Okay.
So, yeah. So when you start to really audit your thoughts, and just like a scientist being curious, where did I get that thought from? Sometimes those thoughts will come up like 20 minutes later. You might have been scrolling, and I find speaking to clients, it could be like a 20-minute delay before it comes up to your consciousness. And just like, okay, is that the kind of life I want?
Yeah.
No, you can veto it. You're like, no. Is that what God says? Is it true? Right? The truth is in Jesus. So most times it's not going to be true. Your brain is only going to offer you a thought that you have been thinking about the last 45 or 60 days. That's it. So if
Hmm.
it offers you a thought, you don't have to take the offer. And God tells us, capture it, make it obedient. And as you do, our feelings and our emotions change, because now we're like examining it. We're like, well, this isn't true according to God's word. Who am I now going to believe? Who's going to be my God now? The circumstance, my eyes, my ears, this thought, or
Hmm.
God? Who's right? And so it ends up being an act of worship of like, let me capture it. Let me examine it. What is the truth in light of God's word? And if it's not there, then it's a lie. There's a lie. You're like, but my circumstances, and it feels true. It can feel true. Of course it feels true. There's
Hmm.
nothing wrong with you when it does, but it's not. And then that's another conversation that you have with God and how you can unpack that.
Our mind is just incredibly complex. I want to throw a little memory out to you that I had, which perplexed me a little bit. So I want your opinion on it, because maybe some people do something similar in their life. So I was actually at one of those Tony Robbins events, and I was there, and he was talking about state of mind and shifting, how our states of mind, our emotions can shift very quickly. And then he took you through an exercise in doing that. Think of some time that was very happy. Imagine yourself there. Da, da, da. And of course, then people feel happy. Think of something that made you angry. And then, the angry, think of when you were sad, and so he started doing this, and he started thinking about these different things. And then he started moving you very quickly from one scenario to the other, just to examine how quickly your state of mind could go. And what perplexed me was the happy moment. I had this kind of thought of when I grew up as an only child. And so I flashed back to when I was maybe like 5 or 6 years old, and with this dumb little artificial white aluminum tree that we had that we would spray snow on, and the gifts of course were all mine because I was an only child and my parents were there and they're both gone now, and I was, it was a time when I was pretty much carefree, and just happy. What perplexed me was that when he would take us back to the happy moment, I didn't want to stay there. I didn't want to be there. It got very uncomfortable for me. I was more comfortable in the sad moment, the angry moment, different moments like that. And the only thing I could figure out was I don't want to be here because I can't stay here. So the happy moment. And so what's your take on that?
You are more comfortable where you are familiar.
Mm,
And so this is you were more familiar in that time with not having that space. If you would have been having more experiences where that was a state that was happening over and over again,
yeah.
the inverse would have been true. So
Okay.
there's nothing wrong with how you were feeling or even your experience of the memory. Part of it, yeah, you're like, I'm not living this. And so I
Mhm.
always say awareness is grace. Triggers are, it's a grace point for you to recognize, oh, something's off. So the fact that you are more comfortable with the negative is because you're just more comfortable there until you train your body to be somewhere else, which is why, sometimes people go into a room and they're like, well, all these people around me, they have all these degrees and all this money and like entrepreneurs, and then they feel like imposter syndrome. And why did God bring me into this room? It's because you have to sit in the environment and allow the environment to rewire you. This is why I
Mhm.
tell people the room rewires you. And so
Yeah.
if you're in rooms that are amplifying negative, conversations, right? Again, it's like, is it edifying? Then why are you talking about it? Why is it coming out of your mouth? Well,
Hmm.
because people need to know what's going on because it is true. You don't know what's true. You have some facts. Facts are not always truth. They
Right.
say that truth is relative. No, it's not. Facts are. That's why when you go to court, you need two or three witnesses because facts are what's relative, not truth. Truth is the truth. It can't change. And again, right, the truth is in Jesus. It's unchangeable. But we have this thing of say the truth is relative. No, it's not. But facts are. So you might have some facts. The facts might be that I'm used to the negative and that feels comfortable. But the truth is, you were made for more because Jesus came to give us life and that life more abundant to the full until it overflows by all means excessive. The truth is that one of the um the gifts of this the spiritual fruits is joy. It's
Yeah.
peace. That's where we're supposed to be living. And so
Mhm.
now you're like, oh, why? Why? It's a great question. Why? It's because that fruit has not been matured yet, but it's already in you. You are already that in your spirit, 100%. Your body and your soul, it just needs to catch up. And that's why we have to, again, right, renew our minds every single day. I mean, he tells us instructions, and we're like, well, why do we have to renew our minds? Well, almost 2 terabytes of information is coming in through our eye gate and ear gate every single day. And our brain's like, okay, where do I put it? How are you feeling about yourself? Do you believe it? Do you not believe it? Do we put it in the wall? Do we discard it? It's doing a lot of work
Mhm.
trying to keep you within the confines of your belief system. And so that's why he's like, renew your mind every single day, because as you renew it in him, organically, you just lose the taste for things that are not from him. It just falls away by its own accord.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I know that I'm thinking a lot of people out there probably struggle with exactly where I was going. I actually had, and there weren't really reasons why I should have been like not happy, but I actually had a friend of mine that was in business with us. He was in kind of like someone that I brought into the business, and he had a conversation with me one day that shook me and probably changed me. God used it to change me. He said, "You you're always doing things for people. You're always very active. You're but you never seem relaxed. You never seem happy. It always seems like there's something going on and there's something that has, you know." And so he asked me this question, which I want, I'm thinking a lot of people out there. He said, "What does a day look like for you when you're actually happy?" And I thought, what kind of dumb question? is that, you know? And so then I tried to answer the question, and that was the most frustrating thing in life right there. When I realized, shoot, I don't know. I can't answer it. And it that shook me. And I realized that, and I think a lot of people are doing this, I never could take in a moment. Whether it was a great moment with family, with kids, with whatever, with a vacation, it would always be, oh, what do I need to get to? What am I not doing? What preferred future is there? I never would appreciate the moment that was happening. Do a lot of people fall into that trap?
Yeah, because especially if we come from a background of performance, right?
Hmm.
Where we were groomed like I'm going to love you when you perform. You
Mm.
know, I'm going to love you as long as you're this.
Okay.
So then you're always your brain, right, learns the language is like it's looking for a threat. And so it's like, okay, I don't want to set somebody off. I want to be liked. We are made to be interdependent too, right? We're a tribal people. That's God's design. And so not wanting, even if we're a little on the maverick side, still not wanting to rock the boat too much. And so when you have those things inside of you, you're like, okay, I can't enjoy the moment because I need to be on. I need to perform. And you might not think like, oh, well, I'm not really performing, it's just being myself. Well, are you, or is that a trauma response? Because if you're being your true self, we know your true self is what God says, joy and peace. And if you can't take in the moment, and that was happening to me too, right? That's why I didn't realize that that was really one of the things when he called me out. I wanted to be with my kids, right? I wanted to be present with them. But even when I was home, I couldn't be because, America is sleeping, but Asian markets are coming on, or like, right? Or Europe, some place in Europe needed help. And so I was always on. I wasn't present with them. So I couldn't enjoy myself because I had, the nice little golden handcuffs.
Yeah.
To answer the questions. And so, we build these things, these habits, and its habits are one of those very sneaky things where it doesn't take 21 days. It takes a consistency of like 62 and a half days before it starts to really get into your neural pathways. 21 days creates momentum. And so what's happening? And the momentum of us not being able to be present because something's always having us do better, be on guard, just in case something, it's high capacity people were like that, high performing people were like that. And so it's that spirit of excellence that really comes back to bite us in the butt when we don't have wisdom and we don't have balance. So that's why we can't like relax in the moment, but we have to just create a new normal of like, oh no, I am choosing, right? So
Hmm.
I talked about that recently in my TV show. It's like our brain does not like an open loop. So you have to make like a choice and be like, that's the plumb line. Like when I'm with my kids, I'm with my children. I'm going to be present with them. And that's one of the things God restored. He restored my health, my hair, my relationship with my kids, where now I'm the mom that I wanted to be with them, that I wasn't when I was working in corporate.
Yeah.
Ourselves a break. Like this is grace, right? Grace is always coming on us. God is always chasing us down with goodness and mercy. And that's
Hmm.
part of the awareness is not for shame because God never shames us. He enlightens us so that way we can be like, oh, wait, why am I not enjoying the moment?
Hmm.
Great question. Why am I not being present? What is not allowing me to just be? And then unpacking that, because a lot of it comes from like childhood and early development or things that happen before our prefrontal cortex, which is our decider.
Right.
No, it's not finished cooking until like 25 years old. And then after the fungalitis of 2020, scientists are saying that got delayed even more up to 30 years old. So now you have these experiences up to 25 to 30 years old, and your decider is not even finished cooking yet.
Mm.
Now it's going to be deciding for you consciously and subconsciously, like how you're going to move in life in order to thrive. So what is the world showing you? You get you get to thrive, you get to be successful when you're always on.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So I will say, thankfully, God has worked things where I do get to enjoy. I actually will allow myself to enjoy some moments now, and I will say it's much better. You tied in the area right here that you mentioned about grace. And that, I mean, I've been a pastor for 39 years and I know about grace and I would teach others about grace. Unfortunately, I didn't often allow it to be in my own life. And I think that's a trap that many of us in all types of walks of life do, where we're able to tell everybody else what needs to happen and what God says to happen, but somehow we don't accept it for ourselves. And and it is very liberating and very freeing to get to the point where we realize God is saying, "Will you just relax? You know, I love you. We can do it tomorrow. We can do whatever. Quit being so hard on yourself and just realize that all the results are up to me anyways." Um,
In the early part of it, God's very funny.
uh,
And in the early part, when I was like, doing all this stuff, he would sound like George Lopez. And it was Papa, I got this.
yeah,
And he would just like pop that in my head and I would laugh. And he's just like, really, I got this. You can relax now.
exactly. And I think sometimes we're the hardest on ourselves more than anything else. We're thinking that's coming from God, and that's another thing. I mean, we talk about salvation and a relationship with God, and we talk about how it's by grace we're saved and all of that, and yet here we are trying to work our way. And it's not that we're not supposed to do the good works that He calls us to, but that's not what earns our merit with Him. So, yeah, that's very revolutionary and changing the way of thinking. So let's shift gears now because we've talked about this quite a bit, but you already kind of touched on a few things that God has really led you into, very creative things, including writing the songs, the music. You're on TV, you did now the radio. A a person could listen to this and think, I thought she said she's relaxed. She's doing more than ever. There's a ton of things. And yet, somehow, I think I'm getting the sense that this energizes you more than it drains you. And if that's the case, then why is that?
Yeah, it does energize me as long as I listen to him, as long as I
Mhm.
do things in the rhythm that he placed it in. So I'm a big believer, go have a snack and a nap. Go and recharge.
Yeah.
And also he's told me you need to do less, but then he gave me the radio station, which is funny.
Mm,
But physically do less. And what that does is that it forces my brain to be more creative in SOPs and systems and being able to create the infrastructure to
mm,
do the work and the machines to do the work and the people that he's brought in my life to do the work so that I have more time with him and have that downtime. So I'm actually doing more, working less and doing less because it's forcing again like my brain to think outside of the box, which is why he had me like create these custom operating systems
yeah.
using GPTs and things. What is it doing? It's helping me to regulate, to do the things in a way that it's in flow. Am I perfect in it? No. Like last year, late last year, for 3 weeks before I got sick, he was like, "You need to rest," and I thought I was resting.
Uh-huh.
No, I was not, sir. I was not. I was not resting because then it was just like, well, I'm gonna make you lie down. That's probably not what he meant in Psalm 23. But I went down for the count. Two weeks I couldn't get out of bed, and then
Mm.
took another 2 weeks for me to start talking. I had lost my voice and everything around that time, and so I did not listen, and I was still doing too much. And he's like, "I told you to rest. I didn't I?"
It is so crazy that you're saying this because I had something so similar about 2 years ago. I got pneumonia for the first time in my life. And it was like the Thursday before Palm Sunday. And I'm taking the shower and it's like God saying, you need to I'm not bringing you out of it this time. In time for Sunday, you need to get a guest speaker. You need to get him now. And so then I go, okay, I'll get the guest speaker. And I tell my son by text, I said, you know what? Well, just so you know, I got a guest speaker because I don't think I'm going to be able to talk, but I'm still going to be there. I'm still going to come, you know? And my son responds to me, and I got really annoyed. He responded to me by text and he goes, I think you should stay home. And I'm thinking, why? I mean, I would tell people it's like I'm going to be in the Lord's house. If they have to wheel me in, I'm going to be there. That was my type of thing, and I tried to set that example. And so I'm in the shower, and it's like I can sense the Spirit of God saying, and I know that sounds weird to some people, but I can like sense Him saying, "You need to stay home." And I'm,
I'm sorry. On my side, I lost sound. I don't know if it's
are
on
you
your side.
you're not hearing me?
Oh, now you came back. Sorry. So
Okay.
the last thing I heard was like you were gonna go in setting the example, even if they have to bring you in by wheelbarrow.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm in the shower still. I'm thinking, okay, I'm just gonna go. I'm not gonna participate. And it's like I can sense God saying, you need to stay home. And I'm arguing with God in the shower. Basically saying, no, I don't need to stay home. I can go. I want to support all that. He's like, you need to stay home.
You're like, you're wrong, God, because you said we're supposed to be
It,
getting together.
exactly. And so I get out of the shower and I've never had this feeling in my life. I'm walking across the floor of my bedroom and literally I can't breathe. I just like all of a sudden just lean over and it's like I'm totally out of breath. I mean, and it's almost like I could hear the voice saying, "You're listening, but you're not hearing me. You need to stay home. You need to make room for others to do what they need to do
Yeah.
and get out of the way. If you
Yeah.
don't listen to me, you're going to be down here begging for your next breath."
Mm.
And it's like, holy crud. Okay, I can't argue with this. Fine, I'll stay home. And here's
Yeah.
the crazy thing that happened, and it was so humbling, right? So I'm watching the service online from home while my family's there, everybody's there, and record attendance for the year. There was like no reason, no, it wasn't that people knew I wasn't going to be there,
Right.
because I didn't necessarily say that. My
Yeah.
my daughter's messaging, oh, these people just came in. These people came in. And it's like, what in the world? And because the other thing that I heard God tell me was in that statement, and it got me a little bit mad at first when he said, "You need to stay home," and he goes, "I don't need you," and it's like, and so then when I'm sitting there on Sunday watching this, I hear it again. He goes, "Look, I don't need you, but I want you, and I choose you. But I can do things just so you understand, do it my way."
Yeah.
But yeah, so you mentioned this thing about how you're gonna keep going and he just like put you on your butt for 2 weeks or whatever, or it's like it's
Yeah,
just
and then he took my voice away, and I was just like, well, he didn't
yeah,
do it, but like I allowed it, right? Opened the door, and then I was just like, I
yeah,
can't talk. Like I told you to rest. Shh, just
exactly. So rest or
let
I'm
me
gonna
out.
make you can't do it, right? It's very hard to fight God. I think I know a lot of people do it, but it's very hard. It's a battle you can't win.
No.
Um, okay. So now he's got you doing. You mentioned the innovation. So you mentioned being way more productive, but not necessarily working harder, just working differently, right? I mean,
Hmm.
and you touched about something on a training that you did that you invited me to, which I thought was key because we hear so much about 10x, and you know exactly what I'm talking about, because 10x is nothing, absolutely nothing. Go ahead and elaborate on that.
What we were talking about, and that's something that God was showing me. He tells us things, and they were like, "Oh, yeah, we get it," and they were like, "Oh, wait."
Hmm.
That sounds good. And then we don't actually make it part of our belief system. We don't allow it to root in. But he was showing me and telling me again, he's like, 10x is nothing because in the parable of the sower, when you're looking at the stages of manifestation that he shows us there, the last step is 30, 60, and 100 fold.
Mm.
That means 30 times. So the world is like, oh, let's 10x this, and that's where you should be going. God's like, it's not even kingdom.
Yeah, right.
We start at 30. Like the worst you should be expecting, the bottom is 30. And then it's 60 and 100. So what are the different phases, right? The 30 is like when you're starting to root things in. The 60s where now you have that soul prosperity. We kind of go through the soul and the spirit. The 100 is when you're like, yeah, you're like doing the things that you need to spiritually. But there's also like thousand one through Deuteronomy 1:11. So it's like the bottom to God is the 30x and the top is like 1,000. So he's so generous. Our God is a generous God. He never just does a little bit. It's always over. It's always abundant. It's always like when we see how Jesus walked and he's paying his taxes, he also paid Peter's. He's just like, yeah, we'll pay both of ours. So it's like the heaven's not gonna dim because I pay yours and mine at the same time. He's feeding
Yeah.
people. He's just like, y'all can eat as much as you want. You want some more? And there was still an overflow, right? Everybody was able to eat as much as they wanted, as little as
Right.
they wanted. We see that in the Old Testament with the manna, and they can eat as much as they want, but they couldn't keep it. They couldn't hoard. We see it with the widow woman with the oil. It just kept going. As long as she had things to put it in, it was just like, and kept going and going and going and going, and she was pouring out. He's so incredibly generous,
Hmm.
and we have a bad reputation, there's around that, like he's God helps those who help themselves. That's not even biblical. He's like, no,
Yeah.
we do this together. My burden is easy, it is light. Like, we hook up. He's the best networker. He knows how to manage our time because he's already set us up for success. So if we're like really aligned with him and really in tune with him, right, being in Jesus, then things are easier. It looks like I'm hustling. It looks like I'm working, 18-hour days. Do I end up sometimes working 18 hours? Yes. But it's not because I have to. I'm actually in flow and I have
Right.
all this creative idea. And then when it peters out, it peters out. Like even earlier today, I was like doing things. I just felt I needed a nap. So it was still the morning. I was like, doesn't matter. I went and I took a nap.
Hmm.
It ended up being an hour. I woke up and I'm so refreshed. I'm like, let's go.
Yeah,
Right.
it's amazing. And when you had said this thing, the 30, 60, 100 fold, and it really resonated with me because I had just been telling people, that with a lot of the new technology and the different things, that it wasn't 10x. I mean, I felt like it was like 100x for me. I felt that in the last year and a half, I'd done more than I did in the previous 10 years. And just getting started on how to learn how to keep doing that. And um, do people need to open themselves up? Let's talk about AI for a second because that's something that I hear so much resistance, so much fear. And granted, anything can be used good or bad. I
Mhm.
get that. But I mean, how does God take, I mean, everything that we have, I mean, people probably feared automobiles when they were made and everything else that's out there, right? How does everything that we have a purpose in the fact that God has allowed and put that creativity inside human beings to be able to then see it created, and how do we use it for good?
I really see it in a few different ways. One of them is that it's really forcing people to get into what they were created for.
Hmm.
It was just like the fungalitis, right? The fungalitis of 2020. Everybody shut down, and it was forcing you to look at things you weren't looking at, your
Yeah.
relationships, your giftings, your talents. So many of us, especially in the church, the reason the church is the way it is because we get into these grooves where it's comfortable, and then we're not doing what God is asking us to do, including laying down the things that are good, right? Because he wants us to exchange it for the better, for the greater. And so what it's doing is that it's forcing people to dig in and was like, what is making you unique? Forcing you to look at what is your purpose. And if you're not going to do your purpose, and if you're doing something that AI eventually can outsource you and do it, it's because you're not supposed to be doing that anymore. And you already know that. So when
Mm,
people get triggered and they get negative, a lot of times it's because it's a mirror to them that they are not where they're supposed to be. Because if you were in your
mm,
lane fully, you wouldn't care what's going on, whether you use AI or not, because you're in your lane doing it the way God is directing you to do that. And so when you're speaking also negatively, all these things with it's ignorance because of like, okay, you don't have all the facts. You don't know everything. You don't know how they're using it. You don't know what God is calling them. Now you're presuming that you can speak into somebody else's life and purpose and be God. And we're supposed to be edifying each other. The world will know who we are as Christians when we love one another. And when we are tearing people down because they're doing things differently. It always happens in the arts,
yeah,
right? So you have the big renaissance and now they're painting differently. There's going to be
right.
an issue. I was talking to somebody like I when the church that I was in my early 20s, they started to, have the guys come in and they're using electric guitars and congas and all this stuff.
Yeah,
And then we had the ladies were like, that is not biblical. She's like, that is devil music because it's an electric guitar.
yeah, I was there, trust me. And not anymore, but I was there. Yeah.
Right? It's like if it's not in the green hymn book, it is
Oh,
not.
yeah. We had the red ones, but yeah, I've seen the green ones too.
Right?
Yeah,
So whenever there's a new technology, right? Can it
mhm,
be abused? Yes, but everything can, you
right.
know? And it's not going to go away. So you have a choice. You could either see how it can amplify what you're already doing, adapt and use it, or if you don't want to, if you're being led to, then don't. But you can't speak ill of other people because for us as kingdom people, that's a no-no.
Right.
If you're not kingdom, the rules don't apply to you. But for us, we have to be mindful of what we say about another person, even if they're not a Christian, because they're still made in the image and likeness of God. They're an image bearer. So
Yeah.
we have to be mindful of the words that we're saying to other people. And so what AI is doing is bringing that 30, 60, 100 fold. It's causing people to slow down. It's like that arrow, right? You have to slow down and think so you can move
Mhm.
faster. It's forcing you to look at yourself and be like, okay, I know I'm made for more. And now there are tools like you and I were talking about. Oh, there's a tool now that works as fast as my brain.
Yeah.
I'm 52 now, so I was like, I had to wait until I was 52 for technology to catch up as how fast I think and create. So for me, as a multimedia creator and a media creator
Mhm.
and having all these things, it's great for me but that's what I'm called to
Right.
versus, if I'm called to slow down and have like 10 kids, that's what I'm called to. I don't necessarily need AI for that, right? My job is different. That lens is different. The season of my life is different.
Right.
So that's the thing with AI is that even like people are like, oh, these AI pictures and there's like, prompts that you can do and it's just fun. And I'm like, so why are you mad that other people are having fun? That tells me more about you and your the state of your heart that people are having fun and they're even saying this was so fun to
Mhm.
create this image and it did something for their soul like, oh,
Right.
I see in this caricature, like, yeah, this is all the things I'm doing, this is what I'm working at, this is what I'm working toward. And now they see a physical representation of that was made through
Mhm.
their thinking. Yes, AI created it, but they still had to imagine and put that information in there.
Right.
And now it's breathing life, like, yeah, let's go, this is exactly what I'm working on.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
they feel empowered by that.
Hmm.
So again, everything that we have, email, text, texting, all that technology, music, especially
Yeah.
music, it's also a technology. All these things can have a detrimental effect. Of course it can. But it's like the scripture is coming to mind is that to the pure, all things are pure.
Yeah.
So if you're
Absolutely.
having an issue with that, then it's like this is not a chastisement. I'm not bringing shame. It's like awareness. If you're having an issue and it's a visceral reaction to it, then it's slowing down enough to be like, why am I feeling so strongly about this?
Yeah, I almost liken it to so knowing what I know and knowing some of the tools that I keep exploring and trying to learn more and more, it's kind of like I got this visual picture of getting in like some speedboat on a lake and seeing the capability that's there to get across that lake. And I want to get across that lake. And then me saying, you know what? I don't believe in that. I don't believe in using the engine here. Give me some oars. let's row ourselves across the, I mean, so much more. It's not that we want to be lazy, but at the same time, it's like there's speeds and there's things that you can do with the engine that's there that you can't do with just the human power. So it's kind of like I, the stubbornness. I have stubbornness to some new technology at times. I still do, but I got to shake out of that because there is, like you said, it's still your voice. It's the creativity that God puts inside of you. But now it's like having paid staff that can do it for you, and get so much more accomplished in that period of time. So, like those caricatures that you're talking about that people have been doing in the last week.
Yeah.
I did one myself, you know,
Me too.
and I saw yours. It was great. And someone looked at mine and they said, "Man, you look really busy." And I looked at it and it's like, "Wow, that's a lot. That is a lot of plates." But it energizes me. I wouldn't want, these are all things that are important to me. And so it's kind of exciting, like you said, to look at it and go, "Wow, it is a lot of stuff that's actually getting done, even though I seem to not necessarily have less time than I had before. In many ways, I'm less tired than I was before. I'm more, optimistic than I was before. So it's definitely been beneficial for me. So real quickly, because man, we could go 3 hours here. But you and I both know people don't listen that long. So here's the thing. What are some of the biggest things you're most excited about that you're doing right now? And then how do people connect with those things when it comes to you?
Two things are actually intertwined. The first thing is the launch of what God put in my heart this year, which is Breakthrough Radio. You can find everything you need to know there at breakthroughradio.net. And I love it because it's a different kind of Christian radio station. It's yes, music, but also talk and stories. So you're getting like a variety of things in order to empower you 24/7. I have this daily Bible reading plan going through the New Testament. So that's, released 3 times a day so people
Wow.
can catch it. There's now a calendar so you can put it on your calendar so you don't forget. Right?
Uh-huh.
It's like adding all these things to help you stay in the word and stay rooted in the word. But sometimes, you need different kinds of energy, so I have like different kinds of music and genres, and everything's empowering to empower your day, empower your walk. So I'm super excited about that. Looking for
Yeah.
host sponsors because it's still brand new. But little by little, people are coming on and putting in their content and repurposing and amplifying it through syndication, which is
Nice.
totally fun. And the other thing is, like, I love to say I make people immortal in 5 days or less. And I do that with, it's like couture, right? Couture songwriting, because I connect with somebody. I'm able to create original lyrics based on our conversation, whether it's a love song for the wife or something for their event or TV show
Mhm.
or book or anything like that. And then I create the music and I compose the music to go with it. And then it gets released to like over 20 platforms. So it lives forever, right? Music is something that outlives us. And so I'm always thinking
Yeah.
about like how can I amplify what somebody's already doing so that it outlives us, so that they're not working so hard, so that people know about them. And when they encounter that piece of music or the content or the podcast, that's being syndicated over there, that people are still being given the word and giving that encouragement, the empowerment, the insight that maybe that they were praying for.
So I'm going to make sure I have those links from you so that I can get those put in the descriptions of these programs, no matter what the platform people are watching or listening to this on, so they can connect with you. I hear those ideas and those things are just right up my alley. I'm like, oh, that's just awesome. And then the automation through the custom GPTs and all the different things that you're doing, and you're helping other people to do those things as well. So here's the last thing I want to ask you for today, because I have a feeling we'll be doing this again. Um, there's a person out there that is a dreamer, does have these big ideas come through their head. And here's the problem. Every time that they do, there are all the other voices, including the own voices in their own head that says, be realistic. Come on, you're not going to have time for that. It's not going to happen. I mean, come on, you're going to do your own radio station thing. There's other radio stations out there, and yet you said yes. Okay? What do you want to say to the person that has yet to say yes? Because they think everyone's going to think they're crazy, and they even think they're half crazy. What would you want to tell them right now?
Oh, God loves that. I mean, if you're crazy, it's like you're crazy and a misfit. It's like that's his favorite kind of person.
Yeah.
So you are in good company. The thoughts that you're having, nothing has gone wrong. And the only reason you think that way with the negativity around that is because those are the rooms that you have been in, and that is what you're currently thinking, you know? But if you have the idea, then write it down. It doesn't mean you have to do it right away, maybe, but start to write it down. You're only responsible for the next baby step. That's it. So what is the next baby step that you can do toward that idea? That is all that you're responsible for. Nothing has gone wrong. There's nothing wrong with you even having those thoughts.
That is awesome advice right there. It's not about necessarily, the destination isn't necessarily tomorrow, but you've got to take the steps between here and there to get there. I
And
love
you're an answer to prayer. So get, sometimes, like, why are the prayers delayed? Because
Mm,
then people are not doing what God is asking them. He's a gentleman. He's not going to possess you. He's not going to force you. He's not going to make you. It's an invitation. You are literally created to be an answer to prayer every single day. And when you
yeah.
are not doing those ideas, when you're not stepping into, when you're not giving God your yes, you're actually delaying somebody else's prayer.
Mm,
And everything is seed time and harvest. This is an opportunity for you to seed in the answer to prayer to somebody else, because that also works in your favor for the things that you're praying for. It's part of our love walk. When we're saying yes, we are loving the other person. It doesn't matter how many they are. It could be like, right, for years, God was just sending me to the one
yeah.
because he loves that one. And he knows that the things that he put in you, that idea, that's why when I started like the Bible thing, I had that idea. And then one person came, she's like, oh my gosh, I set my alarm and I get the popcorn. She's like, oh, Bible time. And the way her life has already been changing because she's been able to do that. I said, if she's the only one listening to this,
Yeah.
it's worth it because it's already bringing fruit because it was for her. And if it's for nobody else, it's for her. And I'll continue to do it as long as I get the invitation for the one.
What you just said, and it's a great way to close it up. What you just said, people, if you're listening to this right now and you did not catch that, that's the $1 million nugget right there. Because quite honestly, so many of us in our comfort zone, even if it's uncomfortable, will not have the discipline and the motivation to step out of it just for ourselves. We just won't do it. But when other lives are depending on it, and what blessing is another person that needs it not going to get because we don't act, often that's what it takes. It's usually something bigger than ourselves, that requires us to and gets us to move. So that what you just shared right there, it's key. I know that's a huge motivation in my life and many others that I've met. If it was just for us, we probably wouldn't do it. But it's for so much more, right? Raquel, such good stuff. Such good stuff. If anything, I didn't get to cover some of the things I wanted to with you because it was so good. So we'll definitely have you back, and I just have a feeling we're going to be doing more stuff together in the future. I just know that. So if you have watched this today and been blessed, please, please, please share this podcast. Make sure you subscribe to this, by the way, and share it with others. Connect with the links that you're going to see there. You're going to want to follow Raquel's content and everything. She's got a great heart. I'm sure you could see that. Just definitely wants to help people and help people be aligned with the truth that God has revealed for them and for their lives and for the lives of others. So thank you so much. And may God bless you, and may God bless all of you that have been watching this podcast today. And we're sign off, and we'll see you next time. Take care.
Bye now.